Hello everybody, we are now live and it's really great to have you here. I'd like to welcome everybody of all nations and all tongues to this Succeed with Dyslexia podcast. So Succeed with Dyslexia is a growing movement that's reaching out to advocates, thinkers and people who join us in experience, in empathy, courage and support. Many of us are living with dyslexia and experience high levels of challenge in what we do every day. You are all welcome. As you'll see next to me, I have Shae Wissell, and she is very active in her support of the dyslexia community in Australia. So this podcast stroke webinar today is the furthest that I have reached with Succeed with Dyslexia. So really excited to have you, Shae, and to hear about what you are doing in Australia, how you are advocating, supporting, and your journey. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm really excited to be here.
So we've got about half an hour or so, Shae, and if questions are arising along the way and people want to put them into the chat box at the side, you're very welcome to do that. If you want to let us know that you can hear okay or say hi, please do. We're very, very pleased to see you all there with us. Thank you for joining us. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about a variety of things, but we're going to talk, I think, mostly about the business of authenticity, and started the webinar today, and it was absolutely clear we had a sort of synchronized experience, and I wonder if it's an experience that you have too, particularly if you are someone working with dyslexia or innovating with dyslexia. So Shae, I'm going to sort of start by asking you a couple of questions really, and I think as a way of introduction, people ought to know that you are someone with dyslexia, and daily tasks for you, I think, can be tricky around reading and writing and organising, as they are for many, many dyslexic people, myself included. And having that particular challenge is something that you have mastered because you have now gone through two MAs and you're a doctoral candidate, and the business, and we know the business of studying is absolutely uphill with time management and organization and getting your ideas to fix and so on and so on. So you are an exceptional dyslexic, someone succeeding, and an exceptional lady as well. And I just want to hear about your story and what you are doing and how you're supporting dyslexics in your community too. I'm going to hand over to you, Shae, and just tell us about what you're doing at the moment.
Well, thank you for that humbling introduction. I wouldn't say that, that I'm any different to any other person that has dyslexia. I was diagnosed as a young adult, well, I think 27 is still a young adult, with both dyslexia and dysgraphia. And for me, my dysgraphia actually has a bigger impact. I think in the UK, you call it developmental coordination disorder.
Yes,
possibly
that's right.
DCD. Yeah, DCD, you've transitioned away from the term dysgraphia. But in Australia, we still use the terms dyslexia, dyspraxia, and dyscalculia. And so I was 27, was diagnosed back then with a reading and writing disorders, and my writing was significantly impaired. And it's really been through the support of my family, particularly my mum, my auntie, and close friends that have helped edit my work that's enabled me to get to the level that I'm at now. And I think it's just been through sheer perseverance and wanting to not have other young people and adults experience the challenges that I did, particularly in the workplace, that has driven me to establish the foundation and to do my doctorate. And even though it's really hard doing my doctorate, it's one of the hardest things I've ever done, I think. I just love it because I know that through the work we're doing, we're changing the narrative in Australia, and we're raising the profile of dyslexia and other learning disabilities, which is so important.
It is, and it takes a movement to really put at centre stage the success of this. There is absolutely no doubt it's a huge achievement and an uphill battle. And for the learners that I work with as a teacher, that uphill battle is absolutely evident on their faces first thing in the morning when they're presented with their work they've got to do for the morning, and you can see the exhaustion that falls down through the day. There's no doubt that it's really tricky being dyslexic. It is an exhausting business, mentally exhausting. And I think we tell ourselves off a lot. We believe that we should be achieving more. And certainly in the world of work, I'll just tell you secretly, it drives me to work much, much harder than I probably should. I don't turn off, Shae. I think I just haven't got enough done. How can I possibly have got enough done? Because it took me half an hour to read something it would have taken someone else 10 minutes to read. And so I then put in an additional half an hour because I just had to reabsorb that piece of information over and over again.
Yeah, it's hard, and I do get into bed some nights nearly in tears thinking, why am I doing this? My brain hurts. Sometimes I still have to have a nap in the afternoon when I've switched from my day job into foundation or studies, because my brain just needs to stop and have some time out. It can be overwhelming sometimes.
Yeah, it really can. I remember coming home from work as a teacher. Every day I would sleep for about 2 hours after school, just because it felt my brain was so full, and I just needed to clear the deck before I could actually get on with my evening. And I did used to feel like I'd spend half of my life asleep, and it was just because my brain needed downtime.
Yeah, and it's hard to explain that to people, because my family say that to me too. Oh, you sleep so much, and I think the older I get, the less I'm sleeping now. But you need that break, and I think sometimes the only way to stop my brain from continually thinking I need to do something, or could I have done this differently, or how can I improve, is actually to just sleep and to stop and hope you don't dream about it.
Yeah. So huge challenges working and studying and living with dyslexia as an adult. There's no doubt that it takes a lot of our energy to be successful. And let's unpack this business of authentic self, Shae, because I know that you've been writing a book, and I know that you've been thinking about this quite deeply. Tell us about your thoughts on dyslexia and being authentic.
I think that it's really, really hard. And when I was diagnosed, the thought of not telling my employers that I was dyslexic caused so much anxiety that I needed to tell them. And even though that's been at different points throughout a job, it's never been, I've never ticked a box that says I have a disability. I've never disclosed it in an interview. I usually wait. We have a probationary period of 6 months now. It used to be 3, which was a bit better. But I normally wait till my probationary period's finished because I want to show my employer that I'm quite competent and capable of doing the role. And it's normally, when I'm coming close to the probationary period or afterwards that I say, well, actually, I'm dyslexic, and, these are the strategies I use. And as you can see, it doesn't really impact on my day-to-day work. Sometimes that's worked in my favor in disclosing, and then a lot of times what I've found is that it hasn't been, I haven't been in a supported environment. So when I've disclosed it, it's I've either not been offered the money that was salary range. I've been told that they knew something was wrong with me. I've been bullied even though I've disclosed it, and picked on. And so it's been over time that through the establishment of the foundation, I couldn't hide that I wasn't dyslexic. And I couldn't not say I didn't have a disability or a learning disability, because how could I run a foundation that was supposed to be advocating and encouraging people to seek help and to have the option to disclose if they want to, and to have the resources to do that if they wanted to. It's such a personal decision, and the research, particularly coming out of the UK, that talks about the second persona and the fear people have around discrimination and stigma when they disclose. So there's a lot of, you have to weigh up the advantages or the disadvantages of disclosing your dyslexia. And I think it's really through the work of the foundation that I've found the confidence to disclose and to be upfront about it all the time. But that's been a personal journey, and you really have to think about the repercussions of what that can do for you in your job. And a lot of people I know don't, particularly in Australia, they won't disclose their dyslexia. They'd rather work back late at night or send work home or ask a peer or have a family member do the work, support them in the work that they're doing, than to be open about what's happened because of that fear of retribution, which is what we don't want to be happening in the workplace.
It's a very genuine, real fear. And if you are someone working in the gig economy, you're so expendable. And so to be someone who says, I need some support to access whatever it might be, some accessibility tools, actually that can cost you your job, can't it? Because that's the difference between the expense of you and employing somebody else. And I've met numbers of people in different industries, catering industries particularly, where I'm often talking about dyslexia and support. And so I might have said, did you know there's a pen that can support your reading? And they've said, yeah, but I'm not going to tell my employer about that. Maybe I need to buy it for myself so that I can self-support, but I'm not going to share that information. So very much the case, I think, for lots of people.
Yeah, and it's hard because organisations aren't set up right now where there's funding available in the workplace, so they may not want to provide you with that support, even though some reasonable adjustments are free. Yeah. I mean, Microsoft has fantastic options now with their text-to-speech and speech-to-text. So, you know, there's a lot of strategies that people can use to hide their dyslexia if they need to. But we're hoping that, you know, there comes a time where, I mean, neurodiversity is becoming such an in word now, and all the work coming in and out of the UK around neurodivergence and supporting a neurodiverse workforce. And that's what we're trying to push within Australia, is creating that narrative where it's not just about autism, it's actually about dyslexia or dysgraphia or ADHD. And there are more and more employers now wanting to be inclusive and to recruit employees that have autism. And so what we're trying to do is say, well, actually, there's a whole group of us out there that have skills as well that you should be employing, rather than being left behind like we have been in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there is a sea change. So we get the big headlines, don't we? Like GCHQ are now actively looking to support the employment of dyslexic people. NASA, you know, so occasionally you get a big news story and you think, oh, great, let's capitalize on that. Let's share this information. Let's really let the workforce know how brilliant neurodiversity is and how it can help support really innovative thinking within your workspace. And I guess it's just really hard to get that message and to embed it. And it just takes lots of work. There's no doubt. There's no cure for it. We've just got to keep sharing the message, because I don't imagine it's high on the agenda of many people to be supporting this information. In the UK, we have a all-parliamentary group that discusses dyslexia now. So that's really, really positive. And we also have an all-party parliamentary group for assistive technology. And so there is a huge shift going on. And that's really exciting, because you feel that actually where you're looking for that impact for change at the highest levels within your political systems, you're now establishing a voice in the UK to do that. So it sounds as though there's work to do in Australia to try and shift things at that level.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's a lot of work that's been put into supporting children, which, you know, children are our future. And the earlier someone can access an assessment and early intervention, we know their outcomes are going to be much better than those who can't get an assessment or any interventions. But we haven't seen that translate yet into the workforce for young people and adults. And the research we're doing with La Trobe University at the moment is sadly the first of its kind around looking at workplace experiences from the employee and the employer's perspective. And where you look at the UK and the US and Europe, there's so much research that's looked at the impact of dyslexia in the workplace. And it's disheartening to see that Australia is so far behind. In I've spent 4 years at the foundation just trying to raise the profile of dyslexia, let alone get funding support or organisations to say, okay, we're happy to now start employing dyslexic people. So we've got a long way to go, but I'm positive that it will happen.
So dyslexia affects about 1 in 10, which is a huge number. I used to think when I had a class of 30 children in front of me that I would probably have 6 children who were going to have learning differences that needed to be attended to, whether that was visible or recorded or not. Very often not. I would always be scanning and scoping my learners to try and give them opportunities to share their knowledge the way that they could, rather than feeling disempowered that they had to share their knowledge in a narrow framework of providing a written response or whatever that might be. And I think as teachers, we've got there. I hope we've got there. We're getting really good at that now. And the message of helping young people to flourish with their abilities and differences is embedded in education. But when you fall off of education, that's where the inequality and the hole then opens up. And we really need to keep pushing for this mindset to continue of celebrating the kind of success that people who are neurodiverse can actually bring to your work placement. And so it's going to take a lot of campaigning, I think, with Succeed with Dyslexia, with Dear Dyslexic, and across all the little networks that I'm trying to find across the world, so that we can become a much stronger voice and advocate more actively. So I know that you've got a campaign that is running at the moment. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so it's called Faces of Dyslexia, hashtag Faces of Dyslexia 2021. And it's really to start trying to raise the profile of the fact that dyslexia affects everyone in different ways, and that we all come in different shapes, sizes, ethnicity, race, gender. We're everywhere. And that it's really important to realise that we are everywhere, and that by people stepping forward and using their face to show that they are dyslexic is what we're trying to encourage. And if people don't want to disclose, they have the option to send in a self-portrait that's of just how dyslexia represents them. So we've got a beautiful piece on our website at the moment from a 15-year-old, and her artwork that describes her dyslexia is just amazing. And she did that just after she was diagnosed. And it's really to showcase the strengths, but also the challenges we have. And I think you can only start talking about the strengths when you've gotten over your challenges. And I think still in Australia, people are struggling so much that it's hard to find your strength, and it's hard to see, the areas that you're really good at if you're always failing, or the systems around you are set up for you to always fail. So the campaign is really to help raise that profile of the challenges and the successes of those with dyslexia, and that we are everywhere in Australia and we need support.
That's it, across every single group that you can think of: sportsmen, artists, musicians, business people. And very often we're hiding, and we're not necessarily saying out loud, actually we're succeeding, and we've got huge things to offer here, in the way that we imagine and the way that we create. And I had this thought a while ago, why is it that we have 10% of us thinking in a completely different way? Surely in a world before written text or the necessity for everybody to conform to reading and writing in a particular way, there must be a reason for this neurodivergence. It must be essential that 10% of us have this different skill set, and it is probably to do with innovation and survival. I would lay money that the people who invented the first, levers machines were probably dyslexic people who were playing about with things, trying to work out how to make something do something else that it shouldn't do, because that's just so typical of people with dyslexia. They're the people who are using the wrong tools for the wrong job and creating something amazing by doing that.
Yeah, well, we don't want groupthink, and I think by having dyslexics, whether they're in dyslexic employees or dyslexics in your family, like my family that's full of them, it stops that groupthink, and it stops it encourages people to think differently and to look at things differently and design differently. And so there are definitely a lot of strengths, I think, to being dyslexic. It's taken me a long time to acknowledge, I think, what those strengths have been for me. And I think, through our campaign, we're hoping that, we use storytelling like we're doing now in our podcasts. And so we're using art as a different form of storytelling. And so hopefully people that, whether they're good at art or they're not good at art, we're drawing on those strengths and showcasing the variety of different talents that people with dyslexia have.
I think dyslexic people gravitate towards the arts. There's no doubt about it. A long time ago, I studied sculpture, and you couldn't move with dyslexic people at my art college. We were all dyslexic, and it was just something that we gradually shared. And then, anyone who isn't around here, it was really funny.
Unfortunately, I didn't get that skill. I was recommended in art class, I think in year 10 or 11, that I should probably move on to a different subject because my skill set did not meet the requirements. So unfortunately, I can't participate in this competition, though in saying that, we're encouraging, it could be a selfie, which I could do a selfie, I guess, to put into the competition. But it's unfortunately, I didn't land one of those talents.
But it's lovely now because there is so much assistive technology available that can help us take our ideas and make something with them. So even if we feel that there's a barrier with our own ability, if you can find a little program or a little way to adapt a photograph that you can take with your phone, you start to feel that excitement of creativity, even if you don't necessarily believe in your personal creativity. I've met lots of young people who tell me I can't draw. No, I can't draw. And it just takes a little while to relax and realize that everything that you do is worthwhile and has value, and to turn off the critical self that's saying, oh, that line's in the wrong place. I've failed this already. I need a new piece of paper. Start again. And it's a very, very common experience, isn't it, of immediate failure.
It is. And I think that, art comes in so many different forms. So even if you can't draw, there might be a different way of expressing yourself. And I think, for me, it's actually expressing myself through the foundation and the work we do and the art of sharing stories. So even though I can't put pen to paper or brush to canvas, and using different mediums.
So storytelling, and this is really important to the work that you do. How did you get started on your storytelling journey?
It was actually from listening to podcasts overseas when I was living in a rural community in Victoria, and I realised that we didn't have anyone sharing the stories of the adult dyslexic. There were lots of stories from parents, and there's lots of advocacy from parents and people working with people with dyslexia, but we didn't have an adult voice. And I just decided one day I was going to do it. And it led me on this journey to now having the foundation and running a national social enterprise, which I would never have thought would happen when I first thought I'm going to do a podcast. And I'd probably only listened to 3 and thought something needs to change and I'm going to do it. And here we are now, 4.5 years later.
Must have been a really scary step to take.
Yeah, I think naivety sometimes can be really helpful, which is what I talk about in my book. I wouldn't say it's a good business strategy, but sometimes the less you know, for me, it was much better. If I'd known how much effort putting a podcast together would be, I may not have done it. But I think I still remember saying to my mum, what if I've done all this work and no one listens to it? And I jumped up and down when the first download of our first podcast happened. And then every day I was checking. And now, I get a monthly update and it's just under 10,000. And I would never have imagined that kind of coverage. And the fact that they're listened to internationally is just so exciting, that people are listening to these stories. And I mean, we don't just interview Australian people. We've got people from all over the world that we've interviewed as well. But and I think we're diversifying and now talking more around neurodiversity, or is dyslexia disability? What does that mean for people, and what the medical model versus the social model? So really starting to stretch the conversation around what it means to be an adult with a learning disability.
It really needs unpacking, and I think it's wonderful that you're starting to do that piece of work. So last 4 years, it's a huge commitment, and probably a life-changing commitment that you made to do that.
Yes, again, if someone had told me how much time and effort would go into what we do, I may not have said I would do this. But I love it. I breathe it. I live it. It's all consuming, and that's partly being your true authentic self. And I think I'm really blessed to be able to do this work and be able to make a difference in the way that we are.
It's a really brave thing to do, really, really brave. So as you're talking about being your authentic self, I'm just going to show everybody the slide of your book, because I think we ought to share that. Whoop. Right, here's a lovely picture of Shae holding her book here, and the Dear Dyslexic podcast, which I would love you to go and listen to, because I'm sure there are episodes that you can catch up on if you've not heard them. Where can people do that, Shae, if they would like to?
If they head to the Dear Dyslexic website, there's a podcast page, and then also if you go to the latest news, we've got 35 podcasts now up on our website. So the next one will be coming out next week, actually, with Amanda, who's a pilot from the UK, and she talks about her dyslexic experience and flying a moth plane from London through to Beirut on her way to Darwin. And it's a wonderful story, and is highly entertaining, and just shows how brave people can be.
I shall really look forward to tuning into that, Shae. And here's something else I'd like everybody to see. And here we are. This is going to coincide with October as a launch, because October is Dyslexia Awareness Month. So Shae has a book coming out. Congratulations. What an achievement.
Thank you. For someone that has a significant writing impairment, disability, disorder, whatever term you want to use. But funnily enough, I love creative writing, and it was something I was good at in secondary school. And the book is really the journey around how I put my house up to rent and moved in with my sister and her family, and couch surfed between her house and my now partner, and the trials and tribulations of trying to run a business and thinking you're going to quit everything to run it, and actually nothing works how you plan. That is for sure. And it's really just different themes around how to set up a social enterprise, and what is a social enterprise, and then how you manage money as someone with dyslexia who struggles to read profit and loss sheets and balance sheets and try to explain those type of things. Someone with dyscalculia, you can probably empathise with me. I wasn't diagnosed with it, but gee, my maths, it's a real struggle. So it's really just goes through the year of the business and the highs and lows, but also the impact that dyslexia can have while trying to run a business.
Really, really valuable information, I think, and we will make sure that on the Succeed with Dyslexia website and Twitter feeds that we share that. And if you are tuning in with us and you would like to share information too about #SucceedWithDyslexia, about the Hobo CEO, please do get on, tweet and share, because we are really keen to share information, raise awareness, and that really is what this is all about. I think for both Shae and for me, it's about putting ourselves into the centre of the community, asking the questions, looking for the answers, and maybe we just get more questions, but hey, we'll just keep going. And the important thing is the dialogue and sharing those success stories, because people need to hear them and we need to be much more visible. I think we're a tremendously positive force for good in the world, dyslexic people, given the chance to share our ideas and thoughts and support and serve and help each other. I think we can do really great things. So I think we're getting to the end of our podcast stroke webinar today, and I'm just going to go back to our AV view. There we are, lovely. I did manage it without showing you all sorts of daft stuff. Well done. Well done, me.
Oh, we've had to pivot quickly, haven't we, as dyslexics, to all this online technology. It's been a challenge during COVID to learn all the different platforms. And
yeah, fast learning curve again. It just seems that life is a series of learning curves, but I don't know, I put myself in the way of challenges always, because I'm just so excited to do the next thing and the next thing and the next challenge. And so it's okay. You just have to tell yourself you're just on a journey and it's okay. And I think mostly people are supportive and helpful, and encouraging. And when you do present a little bit of vulnerability and say, yes, I do actually need a bit of support with this, most people appreciate your vulnerability and can meet your need and help you with what you're doing. And that's important to remember.
It is, and it's also, I think, important to remember that we all have challenges, whether you're dyslexic, neurodiverse, non-neurodiverse. Nobody's perfect, and everybody needs support in different areas. And I think that's what the workplace really needs to realise, is that by drawing on our strengths and supporting our weaknesses, we have a better workforce, we have a happier workforce, and we have happier people in general.
Absolutely. So I'm looking at some questions, Shae, and we've answered lots actually as we've gone along. I can see that because we've talked through dyslexia strengths and what we cherish in others who are dyslexic, which I'll let you have a think about. But also I've got a question about how did you learn to manage your money, Shae? Where did that come from?
Oh, that's a big chapter in my book. Yeah, it's taken me a long time. And actually in my book, I talk about the fact that I started at a very young age using credit, and the challenges that credit creates, and the fact that, we weren't taught at school how to manage money and the life skills around that. And it can be a real risk factor for people with dyslexia, particularly as we have to learn how to read contracts and never, from a phone contract to a mortgage to a rental agreement, there's so many things we have to read. One of my biggest strategies is what we have in Australia. I don't know if you have it in the UK, I can't remember when I lived there, but direct debit.
Yeah.
So I make sure that everything is set up with a direct debit so that I pay my bills on time, because what I found as an adult was that I would miss them all the time, through partly organisation skills, partly just putting it on a pile and forgetting about it. And so that's one of my key things. And then over the years is learning that credit isn't my best friend. In the book, I call it my dirty love affair. And so learning to, manage money has been really, really hard. And it's still something I have to work at, both from a business and a personal perspective. And I think from a business perspective, it's making sure you've got the right people in place, whether it's a bookkeeper, someone that is good with money, just to check the figures, because I generally might mix up my numbers and things like that. So having a second person, my mum,
Yeah.
My mum for my personal life normally, or my sister.
Yes.
But yeah, it does take a lot of effort, and I have to make sure that I have those strategies in place to make sure that everything's working well.
Thank you. That's a really good answer. And there we are. If it weren't for our families supporting us, I think we'd be in deep water. If it weren't for my mum, yeah, I wouldn't have produced the goods at the stage that I needed to. I'd have been in hot water when I was writing my thesis and bits and pieces like that. We need the support and attention from our support network. We really do. But hey, we'll give back so much. I know we will because of that support. Okay. So what about the cherish question? What do you cherish in dyslexic family members that you've mentioned?
In my dyslexic family members, it would have to be their creativity. Definitely my dad is extremely creative, and my brother, they're both carpenters and they make beautiful things. I think our sense of humour, definitely we have a lot of laughs. And I think just the, things are hard, but you just keep pushing through. And I think, we have a lot of laughs and a lot of jokes between our non-dyslexic family members around who's the most intelligent and who's the most creative. And I'm very blessed to be able to share those experiences with my brother and now my dad. Now he's realised he's dyslexic.
Sometimes it takes us a while to get there, doesn't it? And I'm going to just one more question, and this is from Gemma, and I'll read out her question word for word. So, how can I encourage my child? She has her heart set on being a vet, but struggles to acknowledge she has dyslexia. She's 10, and I believe she can do it, but she struggles so much at the moment. I don't want her to lose faith that she can do it. So how can we encourage her, and what would we be saying?
Well, I think, I trained as a speech pathologist, which was extremely hard. I think if there are the right supports in place, then there shouldn't be a reason why at some point she can't aspire and become a vet. People have so many different varied careers. I think, though, in our families, particularly with my nephew who's dyslexic, we focus on the strengths and make sure that he's working on the things that he's really good at. So whether that's sport or being creative or just building his confidence around socializing and having friends and knowing that it's okay that you can't do the same things as everyone else, or you do them differently. You just need some tools to help you do it. So I think continually working on strengths. We always talk at the foundation around the importance of mental health and well-being and accessing counsellors or psychologists, and even for the parent to go and seek help around how to give strategies for their children and to help in because it's constant day-to-day reassurance, affirmations, you can do it, and putting the tools in place so that they can see that they are progressing. And, by the time they get into high school and later in life, that may not be that they want to be a vet. I wanted to be a chef my whole way through school and it never happened. So, I think it's just that constant encouragement that you can do it. It's just you do it in a different way.
Encouraging positive self-affirmation is so powerful. So with lots of students I've worked with my son, I say to him, when you wake up in the morning, I'd love you to have 3 really positive thoughts just right off at the start of the day, thinking about what might be possible and how much people love you and how whatever the challenge is, you are a bright, sparky, amazing person. And just hold that, because life's tricky, but you are a really brightly burning spark with so much to give. And it's just keeping that positivity cycle in place and being realistic. Life is tricky. If you have a disability, it's double tricky. However, there are so many assistive technologies, there are so many supporting mechanisms that actually are there that can make the difference between feeling something is a not achievable mountain to climb, and it actually being possible. So keep on with encouragement, encourage that affirmation, positivity, gratitude that makes us feel better in ourselves, because we absolutely need that positive messaging, and look for those assistive technology tools to support, would be my bit of advice.
Yeah, that's right. And I think, once you get into university, if that's the path you want to go down, it is really hard. But if you have the tools, then, I think you really can succeed.
Well, that's a beautiful message to finish our Succeed with Dyslexia event on. So thank you very, very much, Shae. Thank you everybody who's joined us, asked questions, listened and engaged today. We hope you've had some ideas sparking and have got some takeaways from this little meeting that we've had, so that you have got things to bubble on and investigate. That's really important. I'm just going to, dare I try and find the slides again, Shae? What do you think?
You'll be right.
What do you think? No, not a chance. I don't know what's wrong with me this morning. Hey, there we go. Right. So I'm just going to end on the slide here that shows you the Hobo CEO, a year in the life of the dyslexic social entrepreneur.
With a spelling mistake, just for good luck.
Well, it's just how it's meant to be, right? and you've been listening to it. I know. The Succeed with Dyslexia webinar with Julia Clouter and Shae Wissell from Dear Dyslexic. Thank you very much for your time today. Hope you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you everybody. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.